How long it will take until you are annoyed by the sound? And what if I tell that it even moves? All of this after full service? Yeah, I might send this for full service again, maybe even for the warranty, but until that happens, we will install something else into the bike. And that something else is going to be another transfer from Fox 2023 version. I was not able to find any updated documentation nor tech book about the 2023 version, but I would be dumb if I would buy same 2022, which has had that sort of issues. At least from the first sight it seems exactly the same. Maybe they revised some internals in it. If they do, it's great. If they didn't, one way or another, I was going to buy additional dropper post because I want to install one into my hardtail, and in R2 I noticed that there is a 2023 version. Why not? Without further ado, let's just install it and hope that it will be better. Before proceeding with removal of this old one, I will do one thing, and that thing is to tighten this bolt, so that way I will be able to later clean it once it's removed. To untighten this bolt you need big enough wrench, almost 40 millimeters width. Before proceeding with the dropper, I would suggest to make sure that barrel is towards the end. The reason why we turn down the barrel adjuster up to the end is to make sure that we have enough play, and that way it will be easier to remove the dropper from the frame. In my channel there is a video that I was separate everything into pieces, and the dropper didn't arrive on time, so I just installed the old one and make sure that the cable is long enough, etc. Just in case if something is different in the updated version. How to remove the dropper from the frame and tighten the seat clamp. Here there will be 3 millimeters Allen key, and you just release the cable and we are pretty much done with it. Later I will remove the seat from the post. I would strongly suggest to open the doors at the bottom, so that way you could make sure that the cable goes without tension and it's in the proper way. Especially when you are going to push it down, so that way you can guide it. On the left there is 2022 model, while on the right it's 2023. There is a different revision, and apart from that they look kind of identical, apart from the wear signs. It would be a good idea to make a picture of that QR code, so that way you will know the product number and maybe even Google out something if needed. So that's the new one, and I will also make the same thing with the old one. Actually, while we are here, I understood that it would be a good idea to weight both of those droppers, so we will see whether there is some changes by the weight. Probably this is going to be the weirdest weight process you've ever seen. Let's do the weirdo thing. First of all, it's an old one, so the weighting process didn't went very well, simply because those scales are not for those type of small things. But let's just see whether the dropper itself works. Push down and then move it out. Seems like it is. So the bolt is screwed out already. So basically here's how we do it. We have the cable and the shield. We move the cable through the center and make sure to make a loop. Once the loop is made, pull down the cable. All you need to do is to tighten the bolt down, and you are pulling the cable down as well. It's not required to be super tight. You will be able to tighten this through the barrel gesture. Just make sure that there is not too loose here. Because the cable is pretty lengthy, I'm going to cut it down at the bottom. Measure multiple times, cut it once. You can see that the length of the cable is just right at the top of the tube. I left a bit of cable at the bottom just to make sure that it's not overstretched. Where carbon mixes with metal, I always apply paste just to make sure that there's not too much friction and you will remove it easier in the future. I'm not adding too much, I'm just spreading it around. We are inserting the dropper into the frame. I know that with the old one I had it just under the letter N, so I'm going to do it similar way as well. For now I will tighten it plainly, but later I will use the torque wrench as well. First impressions, zero movement, maybe tiny bit, but no flex, no sag, nothing. I can tighten it just a bit. Even the sound is, of course, you can't compare the new thing with the old one. We will proceed with the saddle. I don't know about you, but for me, inserting the saddle is always a headache. I mean, I don't really know from which part you should begin and where you have to end. So if you have any suggestions or recommendations how this can be easier applied, I'm open to hear those. I'm going to add a bit of a carbon paste as well on the rails. Actually, I'm using Physique Antares R1, large one for my big butt, and it does wonders. So now again, where to start? It just feels like if you unscrew the bolts as much as possible and leave them only partially inserted, it could help, but for me it never does. So it's always easier for me to just remove the bolt at the back. Call me lazy, but that's the easiest way for me. I have markups from my previous insert, and because the rails are the same, the dropper is the same, everything is the same here. Also, when installing the seat to your full suspension bike's seat post, always think about two things. One is that the bike is on the ground fully. In this case, it's not the case because it's on the bike stand. And the other thing is sag. On stationary, you should make sure that you set the saddle almost a bit pointing down, simply because when the sag sets into place, your rear will still go a bit down and might be not as good as you would want to. So I will make those final adjustments with the bike off. So yeah, it's almost straight. And it should be good, because then I will sit down, it will go a bit down, and I prefer not going towards the handlebars but sit a bit with seat up. So the first impression of the transfer is amazing. Nothing to compare what was on the previous one. So it works, and now the only remaining part is to tighten the seat clamp. It should be tightened at 4 Newton meters. I would strongly suggest to do not over tighten it. If you over tighten it at least a tiny bit, you can feel that there is a bit of a tension on the dropper. So if that happens, just make sure to release it a bit and you will be good to go. So here we have it, transfer installed on the Scotspark RC Pro 2023 version on 2022 model. First impression is like everything with new things. It looks amazing, and we will see how it goes in the long run. It's kind of the same cost to efficiency ratio, or might be even better, but considering that you have to remove the cables and there is a bit additional work to do, I kind of want to testify whether this will work. However, I'm not even sure I'll have the bike for so long.